Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining. Welcome to AIR's inaugural event for our new Promise Center. You may be wondering what Promise stands for. It is promoting resilience, opportunity, and mobility in support of equity. This is a roundtable discussion on creating an equitable workforce system at scale. I am your moderator today, Makini Nyante. I am the Vice President of Communications and Public Affairs here at AIR, and I am pleased to facilitate today's discussion. Just a little housekeeping before we dive in to the roundtable. We will be recording this session for the benefit of those who may not be able to join live today. The American Institutes for Research, AIR, allows for the recording of audio, visuals, participants, and other information sent, verbalized, or utilized during business-related meetings. By joining a meeting, you automatically consent to such recordings. Any participant who prefers to participate via audio only should disable their video camera, so only their audio will be captured. Video and/or audio recordings of any AIR session shall not be transmitted to an external third party without the permission of AIR. If you have any questions during today's roundtable, we encourage you to send them to our Promise Center by email, promisecenter@air.org. And a member of the center team will follow up with you to provide answers. Lastly, I encourage those of you who are joining today to share your thoughts and comments about this discussion through social media, whether it be Twitter or Facebook or LinkedIn or what have you. Use the hashtag #AIRPromise, or feel free to tag us at @AIRinforms. So now that we have the housekeeping out of the way, let's jump right in. So why do you want to know, or why do we want you to know about the Promise Center? Well, it started with the launch of the AIR Equity Initiative in September of 2021. This was AIR's $100+ million 5-year investment in generating and supporting the use and application of evidence to increase opportunity and address persistent inequities in work, education, community, and health in the US. The AIR Equity Initiative leverages AIR's deep capacity and expertise in research and evaluation and capacity building in all of these domains to support projects and partnerships that take a long view on these critical challenges, that work across systems, integrate diverse perspectives, and bring together communities, field leaders, innovators, and policymakers to drive measurable change. The Promise Center, which was established with direct support from the AIR Equity Initiative, is one of the first examples of how AIR is supporting bold learning and field building agendas explicitly anchored on the goals of advancing equity and driving for systemic change, in this case, in the workforce arena. So we're glad to have all of you joining us for today's conversation on what is needed to create a more equitable workforce development ecosystem that provides opportunity at scale. So it is my pleasure to introduce to you Dr. Irma Perez-Johnson, who leads our new Promise Center and is a vice president at AIR. Thank you for turning your camera on, Irma. She leads our workforce program area. She is an expert in the design and implementation of rigorous evaluations of employment, adult training, and K-12 educational interventions, including pilots and demonstrations, and the application of behavioral insights to improve program outcomes and performance in various policy contexts. An accomplished researcher with more than 25 years of experience, Dr. Perez-Johnson has led or played lead roles in studies focusing on topics as diverse as job search assistance, welfare to work transitions, occupational skills, vocational training, entrepreneurship, and self-employment, just to name a few. Irma, it's great to have you here today for this exciting launch. Please share with those who are joining us a little bit more about the Promise Center's mission and goals. Dr. Johnson, Dr. Perez-Johnson.
Thank you so much, Makini. It's always so good to see you. And good afternoon also to all who have joined us. for today's launch of the new Promise Center. I only want to take a few minutes for some important context setting on our Promise work. Today is, in essence, our symbolic planting of a flag on how our AIR team in workforce wants to really lean into mission and ensure that our work and expertise are really helping to make a difference in addressing the most important workforce challenges in our country today. The idea of promise, in honesty, has been 2 to 3 years in the making and is informed by deep reflection among my great colleague Harry Holtzer, myself, and many other colleagues at AIR and outside partners who have been in the kind of workforce trenches for a bit on what we have learned, accomplished, but more importantly, what we have not been able to accomplish, sort of over the, past decades of our career. Harry will have a moment, to speak to the worrisome trends that lent a real sense of urgency to our Promise learning agenda and initial work plan. But for the AIR workforce team and for myself personally, what became crystal clear is that if we really wanted our work to help move the needle on these issues that we cared so deeply about, that we had to do more, and that many of us, in fact, wanted to do more than our traditional kind of research or just technical assistance work. So in essence, Promise is about broadening our efforts beyond our traditional projects or portfolios of related work to really ensure that as we embark in the work that we normally do, we keep ourselves truly grounded on the knowledge base, the existing knowledge base that is supposed to inform our work. That we develop a shared understanding of that knowledge base. That we also continue to evolve our understanding of that knowledge base by periodically pausing to connect the dots around what we have learned recently and what others have learned to ensure that collectively we're, again, evolving our understanding and having these most up-to-date and best insights inform all aspects of our work. We also recognize that to affect change, we have to take on a more proactive and intentional role in both helping others understand, add to, and apply the existing knowledge base. So we really want to be part of that catalyzing effect in the system as a whole. And finally, recognize that in order to have the effects we want on the system to truly affect change, we needed to engage in additional activities to ensure that what we know works in workforce development really has the potential to benefit as many people as possible, and also that we stay kind of clearly focused on the type of solutions and systemic changes that are really needed to address the workforce challenges in our country at the scale in which they're happening. Again, that, little programs or, sort of small scale solutions without moving effective practices to scale would not be enough. For everyone joining us today, my colleague Pamdan Sabana included a link to a handout for today's event that lists our 5 Promise goals. I won't state them, but only want to highlight that they're clearly bold, ambitious, and long-term, things that we know we can't accomplish ourselves. We'd love your feedback on our goals, but what we want to point out is that, this is clearly a collective enterprise, and what we want is to engage with others in these efforts. Today you'll have a chance to learn about how Promise, or one of our initial activities under Promise, is really betting big on the sectoral approach as a likely essential element of the range of solutions that we need in our country to really create an effective, robust, and resilient workforce ecosystem everywhere. And before you hear from your panelists, I invite our listeners to please listen in and pay attention for the examples of how we're not approaching this work as experts or experimenters, but as true learning partners. We have put our organization's deep expertise and capabilities at the disposal of these best-in-class field leaders to help them continue to evolve and adapt their proven programs to meet the fast-changing realities of the learners, employers, industries, and communities that they're deeply committed to serve. So in exchange, we have only asked them for the opportunity to learn alongside them and for their commitment to work with us to share in appropriate ways what we learn with each other, but also with the broader community to really drive for impact at scale. We have also asked our partners to work with us to take a close look at equity gaps in access and outcomes in their programs, and then to work with us to troubleshoot, innovate, and identify effective strategies to really help close gaps in opportunity and success in our country. So that's also part of our agenda. So today we'll be sharing 3 examples of the types of efforts that Promise is undertaking and letting you know that our vision is to continue to expand and evolve these efforts, working in close partnership with others who are similarly deeply concerned about the workforce issues in our country and trying to stay laser focused on the breadth and magnitude of the efforts that are needed to address our urgent workforce challenges, not just for today, but well into the future. So back to you, Vicki.
Thank you so much for that, Irma. It's so exciting to hear this bold agenda. And I was particularly struck by your use of the word catalyst, because that suggests a level of intention, a level of momentum, and a level of investment. And I know we're going to hear more about that through all of our panelists in the roundtable today. Irma mentioned Harry, so let me next introduce Dr. Harry Holtzer. Dr. Holtzer serves as a senior advisor and principal investigator for the Promise Center. Among his many roles, Harry is also an Institute Fellow here at AIR, the John Lafarge Center S.J. Professor of Public Policy at the McCourt School of Public Policy at Georgetown University, and previously served as Chief Economist for the U.S. Department of Labor. Harry, will you share with the audience why the work of the Promise Center matters, and what are some of the big picture workforce issues that Promise is trying to help address? Harry, you can turn on your camera now. Thank you.
Thank you, McKinney. It's very nice to be here. I think we know a lot about the context of the U.S. labor market that make this work so urgent. Just at least 2 characteristics of the U.S. market that we're focusing on and trying to fix. Number one, we have enormous inequality in our labor market, and especially inequality by both class and race. And secondly, over time and across generations, we have fairly low levels of upward mobility and fairly uneven opportunities for people to improve their earnings. And that's a bad combination, high inequality and low upward mobility. There's lots of different reasons for that, but some of it does come down to the skills people bring to the labor market and their educational and skill credentials. In the current labor market, it's very hard for workers to earn what some people call a living wage without having some kind of post-secondary training and credential beyond a high school diploma, and a credential with labor market value that the labor market and employers and industry value because they see it as productive. And just as a sort of one fact illustrating the challenge, only about half, a little over half of Americans today, of adults, have any kind of post-secondary credential whatsoever. And even out of that half, some of those credentials don't have great labor market value, right? So it indicates that this labor market is not working for at least half or more than half of Americans. And if you're asking, well, how's that possible, given that the labor market rewards those skills so much? Let's put sort of 3 quick problems on the table. We send a lot of people to college in America, some kind of college, community college, for-profits, but with 3 problems. Number one, a lot of people don't finish. Completion rates, and especially community colleges, completion rates only about 40% after many years. Number 2, people who do complete, some folks get these credentials that the market doesn't value, like a terminal associate's degree in liberal arts. If you're not going on to a 4-year degree in a 4-year college, the labor market doesn't value that very much. And then thirdly, people pile up debt and default on those debts if they can't achieve the first 2 goals. And there's a lot of talk about debt in the U.S. economy. I think a lot of it is misguided. What's really important, I think, are not the people who pile up a few $100,000 and then get a degree at an elite school, a 4-year or graduate degree. The real problem is people sometimes who only borrow 10, 20, or 30,000 to go to a community college or a for-profit and then don't finish, don't get a good job at that afterwards. And there's a lot of people in that category too. So these are the problems, the challenges for workers, but it's not just workers who are struggling right now. Employers are really struggling to find what they call talent, highly productive workers in whatever industries they're in. Currently we have a labor shortage. People know that the number of vacancies is about twice the number of unemployed workers trying to fill them. And on many dimensions, people come in not well prepared for the jobs that are available and that pay well. Baby boomers are retiring. They are often the skilled employees in a lot of these sectors, and employers don't know how to replace them when they go. And it's a problem for the whole economy. If you want to have a growing economy, you need two things. You need population growth, you need productivity growth. Well, population growth is pretty flat in our economy right now. You're not getting any growth out of that. It's got to come from productivity. And we can't afford to have so much of the US labor market falling through the cracks with low productivity and low earnings. So it's bad for all of us, and it's bad for the economy. Now, this all may sound a little grim. One bit of bright, very good news that Irma already mentioned. We now know what works. We have strong, rigorous research evidence on a very effective approach. As Irma said, it's called sector-based training, where intermediaries try to bring together employers and industry on one side, educational providers or institutions or training on the other, and try to put together a training curriculum that really meets the needs of those employers, plus other support services that the workers and students need. And we know this approach at its best, and some of the best programs that we're going to hear about today have large and lasting positive effects on workers' earnings. On average, $5,000 to $6,000 increases. That's on average, much larger than that for some workers. And lasting, we've had studies that now go out anywhere from 8 to 11 years with no erosion at all in those earnings gains. It's very exciting. We haven't seen this except in recent years. But these, so far, are very small programs. Here at AR, we tend to call them little gems. Wonderful little programs, but much too small to really move the needle in a broad sense. These programs need to reach millions. We're trying to figure out how to do that. So it really is two challenges, I think, that we face, that the Promise Center is all about. One is to take those best-in-class programs, Year Up, for Scholas, and Project Quest, and some others, and expand their reach so that they reach many, many more workers than they do now. That involves replication, and those programs are replicating, but beyond that, it involves new partnerships of theirs with other institutions, other organizations, and maybe new pedagogical systems online to reach many more workers. But the other challenge is there's only one institution in America right now that's positioned to do this, to provide these skill training at scale, and that's the community college. The community college, that's where low-income students go, and people of color and people who need more opportunity. But many and most community colleges aren't really set up to do workforce training effectively. So the challenge there is to figure out how to do this and how to have quality sector-based training, but at a much larger scale than we've seen today. So those are the challenges, but we have a great set of partners to work on these two challenges. We're very fortunate to have these partners today, whom we're about to meet in a few minutes, and it's I'm thrilled to have this opportunity to be part of this work.
Thank you so much, Harry, for setting the frame of our roundtable discussion. And so now that you have heard from the leadership of AIR's Promise Center, let me introduce you to these distinguished panelists who will be joining us in just a moment. And I'd like to draw your attention to the chat. We've included a PDF of an overview of the Promise Center agenda and bios on our speakers. So I won't read the entire bios so that we have enough time to have the conversation with them here today. But let me begin by introducing you to the partner organizations of this inaugural Promise Center effort. They are the leaders of Year Up, for Scholas, and the City Colleges of Chicago. So let me begin with the first panelist, Dr. Garrett Warfield. Thank you for turning on your camera. He is Year Up's Chief Research Officer. Garrett oversees research designed to test and improve the impact of the program and strengthen its business operations. Garrett and his team manage Year Up's national survey and reporting system and a large portfolio of randomized controlled trials, rapid cycle evaluation, and data science projects in partnership with leading research firms and universities across the country. Welcome to the Roundtable, Dr. Warfield. Next, if you can turn on your camera, Plinio Ayala. He has been the CEO and president of Scholas for nearly 20 years and has led it through the tremendous growth it has been experiencing, pivoting Scholas to scale even in the midst of the pandemic. Congratulations. Plinio became president and CEO of Scholas in 2003 and has been instrumental in so many of the organization's achievements since then, from evolving its original mission, which was to bridge the digital divide by refurbishing end-of-life computer equipment for new use in families and schools, to its accelerating national growth today. Welcome to the Roundtable, Plinio. And finally on our Roundtable is Juan Salgado, who currently serves as Chancellor of the City Colleges of Chicago. You can turn on your video now. Thank you, Juan. Juan has focused his career on improving education and economic opportunities for residents in low-income communities. From 2001 to 2017, he served as CEO of Instituto del Progreso Latino, where he worked to empower residents of Chicago's Southwest Side through education, citizenship, and skill-building programs that led to sustainable employment and economic stability. Welcome to the Roundtable, Juan, and thank you all for joining us today. Again, these panelists have very deep and distinguished backgrounds and expertise, and I encourage you to read more about them in the one-pager document that we provided for you. And so I'd like to give you all an opportunity to tell us more about your organizations. We've given just a taste in providing a little bit about your bios. We'd like to hear more about your mission and the people that you serve, how you see your work with the Promise Center, contributing to helping more Americans access great jobs and careers, as Harry was talking about, and being a part of the American prosperity story. So Dr. Warfield, why don't we start with you? Garrett, how about you begin?
Thanks for the warm welcome and the chance to join some colleagues and friends on the panel. I know we're in good company and many might be familiar with Year Up, and Harry gave a good rundown, but for those who don't know us as well, we're a national workforce development program. We're committed on one hand to maximizing access to economic mobility through high quality jobs with top companies, while on the other hand, changing the employment systems and practices within those companies to better promote hiring, long-term retention, and advancement of the people we serve. Our participants are ages 18 to 29. They have a high school diploma or a GED, but less than a bachelor's degree and a legal right to work within the US. Since we launched in 2000, we've served over 36,000 people, primarily from low-income backgrounds across 19 geographies nationwide, typically major US cities that are hubs for large influential employers in tech, banking and finance, healthcare and life sciences, insurance, communications, and beyond. Over 90% of Year Up's participants are young professionals of color. They have tremendous motivation, skill, and experience to bring to bear in the workforce, but they're, as Harry described, often overlooked as a good source of talent. So over our 20 plus years in operation, we've mostly delivered a program comprised of up to 6 months of classroom training in essential professional and technical skills, followed by up to a 6-month internship with Fortune 500 companies. And all of that culminates in a full-time placement into a living wage job related to the training. The program's offered at no cost to students, and we provide professional coaching, wraparound student services, and a stipend to help with financial support throughout the full program. Harry mentioned some of this, but several evaluations have shown that we're doing well at delivering on our promise. The findings from our latest randomized controlled trials are showing some of the largest earnings gains in our field's history, $8,000 a year, sustained over 6 years after the program with no signs of those effects fading, and a sizable $2.46 return benefit to society for every dollar invested in the program. up until the start of the pandemic, with very rare exception, we delivered Europe in person at our own brick and mortar program sites or on college campuses where we're co-located with college partners. COVID, however, forced us to adapt, and over a very, very hectic month in early 2020, we transitioned the program to fully virtual delivery. Moving forward, though, we're responding to increased employer demand, and we're doing that by drastically scaling through a variety of in-person, virtual, and mostly hybrid formats. In the past, Europe operated largely as like one size fits all, in that all participants had more or less the same program experience. However, we believe we have to challenge that orthodoxy in a couple of key ways to unlock our ability to scale. First, there needs to be more efficient and cost-effective pathways through Europe and into high-quality jobs. These pathways can include accelerated training programs that are shorter in duration, that can lead to direct placements into internships or jobs. These shorter delivery models are viable because some of the fields we train in, honestly, require less technical skills training to prepare for work than others. And because not all, but some participants come to Europe with prior experiences in training, and they're ready sooner to be successful at work. Second, and related to that, we're growing and forging partnerships with other training institutions and community-based orgs like those represented on today's panel to build a talent provider ecosystem that's supported by our strong pipeline to job opportunities with companies. When students complete their time with our sibling training providers, they'd continue their journey with Year Up, connecting them to work-based experiences and jobs. This is where our partnership with AIR and the Promise Center is so very important, especially as the field is moving towards a skills-based ecosystem to create more opportunities for diverse talent. We need a robust end-to-end assessment system that allows us to better measure, first, the skills and readiness of prospective students coming into our program, then their continued professional development and upskilling during their training, the best matches between their skill sets and the available internships, and finally, the best matches into high-quality full-time job opportunities after the program. The challenge is the workforce field is full of different skills assessments, tools, and services. Many are proprietary and have tremendous promise. Others are customized, but they don't necessarily connect nor intuitively package together to create a cohesive understanding of a student's development before, during, and after workforce training. So our partners at AIR, who are deep in their expertise in assessment and measurement, are making a foundational investment that will enable Europe to scale. Together, we're learning how to better customize and match Europe's training and placement services to more students with diverse experiences, including their time spent with past or other training providers. A comprehensive framework for measuring skill development and more targeted matching of talented young adults with open job opportunities would meaningfully change how training providers and employers operate together. And I'll digress on this point for now because I'm excited to hear from my co-panelists. Selfishly, we want to get more historically excluded young adults and adults into high demand jobs that promise economic mobility. And to do that, we need better systems and more nuanced assessment practices that highlight, lift up, celebrate valuable and marketable skills without categorically dismissing talented young professionals. For example, we do not necessarily have a bachelor's degree that's a default requirement for far too many job opportunities. We know there are better ways, and the Year Up and AIR teams are excited to chart a path forward. So I'll end on that point with thanks.
Thank you so much for that, Garrett. And I think there's a lot of great nuggets in what you shared. I think you captured the intention of the Promise Center with a couple of your comments, and one of them was around building this ecosystem, really enriching that, and that together we're learning, the recognition that we can't do it alone and that we have to partner with great organizations like those of you here to go further and build to scale. So with that, I'll segue to you, Plinio, to talk more about what you're doing at Scholas and how you see yourself partnering with the Promise Center to further this agenda around great jobs for all Americans.
McKinney, first of all, thank you so much for facilitating today's panel. And I'm just thrilled to be on this session with such amazing friends. I'm a big fan of Year Up and certainly all of the work that Juan is doing in Chicago. So it's a pleasure to be here with both of you. The organization has been around for 27 years. And if I can fast forward to where we are today, what's emerged is a national IT workforce development organization that's now in 19 cities and will serve upwards of 4,000 people this year. But I'd like to go back, if I could, to the fall of 2019. We had made some bets and invested in what we thought was going to be a very slow roll in learning how to do virtual training. We built out these classrooms and trained some staff and actually started 2020 pushing content out of our Bronx office with 20 students there and teaching 20 students in our office in Dallas. And it was going extremely well. And then obviously the world went sideways in March. But we had the platform in place to be able to pivot our entire operation to a virtual one. 520 students who were in the classroom went virtual. And it wasn't without pain. We clearly realized that the digital divide was still around. We had to deploy computers and Wi-Fi modules to our students so that they can complete their training program. And frankly, when we went virtual, I held my breath and just hoped that it wasn't all going to go awry. And I'm pleased to say that month after month, since we went virtual, we've continued to innovate, modify, correct, change our program. And now I'm pleased to report that our outcomes are just the same as they were prior to the pandemic, with over 85% of our students graduating, 80% finding work in the technology space, earning 4 times more than what they were earning prior to entering our training program. And so the vision for the organization going forward is one that combines, as Year Up is also contemplating, a blend of in-person classes, remote training, and variations of virtual training to increase our scale, to take it from 19 cities to 25 cities, from 4,000 Americans to 10,000 Americans by 2026. And as we do all this, I think one of the strengths of the organization is our willingness to be entrepreneurial, to embrace change, to be daring with innovation. And the partnership with the Promise Center promises to key in on something that could really help this organization scale. And I think as a benefit, be able to help workforce development organizations across the country utilize this very unique, innovative approach around using artificial intelligence to build a tutoring system for our learners to augment what they're learning in the classroom, right? So what we want to figure out a way of doing is continuing to bring down costs, but increasing the return of the investments made in our program. And we think that's a low cost, high return initiative that will allow an increase in the certification rates of our graduates. And at the end of the day, increase our placement rates as well. And so, we'll learn a lot over the next, 6 to 9 months. And I'm excited to share with the field what we'll learn, because I think it has the ability to disrupt how some of this work is done going forward.
Thank you for that, Plenio. What's really exciting about what you shared, not just your success story through the pandemic, and we all love a pandemic success story that we continue to live in, right? And continue to find a way to thrive within, but that you're also building on what works to be innovative and creative, and that you're in this constant state of continuous improvement. And I think that's also really inspiring. So I want to turn to you now, Juan, to talk about City Colleges of Chicago, and then I'll welcome in Irma and Harry to share some thoughts before we pivot to the next part of our conversation. So Juan, talk to us about City Colleges and how you're looking to partner with the Promise Center.
Absolutely. First of all, it's great to be here. We are at City Colleges, without a doubt, the most accessible higher education engine for socioeconomic mobility, right? We are that institution in the city that can really help our city to achieve racial equity and the kind of just and sustainable and stronger Chicago that we all want. We serve nearly 60,000 students annually. 75% of whom are Black or Latinx, as Harry mentioned. Many first in their family to go attend college. Many of them parents themselves, by the way. We hit young people coming out of high school, but we have many adults, right, that are looking to advance in their fields or just looking to change fields and improve their overall well-being. We're part of a community college system in America that is very large, that hits every part of the United States, rural, urban, suburban, hitting similar students with the opportunity to have an education. So you think about this, 942 institutions, community colleges across the country serving 12.4 million students. So we've already have scale, right? The question is, what are we going to do with that, right? What adjustments do we need to make as institutions, in order to be stronger, be more economically responsive, both to our local economies, as well as obviously the people that we serve, the students that we serve. And so at City Colleges, I would just say we made an important strategic pivot some 8-9 years ago, from being an institution that did the wonderful work of ensuring students would transfer to four-year universities and had the preparation to do that. That was my journey. I went through community college for 2 years. I have 5 brothers and sisters. We all went to community college on our way to our careers. Most of us transferred to four-year universities within that journey. But the thing that is different about our community college today versus 9 years ago is we made a decision to look at sector-based training, as Harry talked about. We decided to look at the growth areas in our economy locally in Chicago and make sure that we built a center of excellence across our 7 college systems. So with each of our colleges taking the lead on one or more of these high growth, high demand, well-paying jobs that do pay a living wage, and that we built the facilities to do the proper workforce training in these areas, and that we also built the curriculum, and we did that with employers, right, directly, so that the relevance was there and the buy-in was there. And so we built what we call today our Center of Excellence model. And that Center of Excellence model is one that we've made investments in. As I said, we built the $250 million brand new healthcare hub for ourselves at Malcolm X College. We built a transportation distribution and logistics facility out of Olive Harvey that is training in everything from aviation to supply chain to automotive to diesel, finding new avenues every day, to impact that particular industry, or advanced manufacturing, or engineering and computer science, right? Or education, where we need a good pipeline of educators and business and finance and insurance. So we ensured that we had relevance in these areas. And what we're doing now, what we're doing with Promise now is really important because we need to strengthen these pathways. So with AIR and Promise, we've established a learning partnership with City Colleges of Chicago. And through that learning partnership, AIR is helping to strengthen CCC's efforts to implement our Center of Excellence model. And so what are we doing with Promise? They're conducting interviews with our staff and our employer partners to really help us better understand our Center of Excellence educational implementation at each college, and opportunities to actually strengthen the model. As we move forward, what are you going to see? We're going to have a playbook for the Center of Excellence model for us to actually build upon. We're going to build on our pathways and our student supports within that model. And we're going to ensure that there's consistency in our employer engagement across the college. And finally, we're going to make sure that there's a methodology for partnerships with the Europes of the world, and maybe even the future Scholas of the world, right? The synergies that Garrett talked about are really important to us because we understand at the end of the day, it is an ecosystem. We are here to drive economic value. We do have an important and incredible role, but it's not the only institution. We have to work well with others, including our K through 12 school system, which I can speak to a little bit later.
That's fantastic. Thank you for sharing that example. And we happen to have offices in and around the Chicago area. And so I've been able to see in person some of the great partnerships that you have across the City College platform. And it is quite impressive. So thank you so much for joining us here today and sharing the work that you're doing in partnership with the Promise Center. So, an hour goes by very quickly and we've still got a little bit of time, but I'd like to ask all of my panelists, Dr. Warfield, Plinio, Juan, Irma, and Harry, if you could all turn your cameras on so that we can just have a little bit of a discussion. I also want to take a moment to acknowledge a couple of the comments that have come into the chat. There's not time to do a Q&A today, unfortunately, but as I indicated when we open today's roundtable, we are taking notes of all of your questions and comments, and we'll be folding that into our discussions and the work as we continue to think about how we partner and communicate going forward. You can also email us at promisecenter@air.org. So with my roundtable panelists with us all here on the screen, if we can use the remaining time that we have to talk a little bit about building off of the foundation of the work of your organizations and the partnership with Promise, if you could offer some additional thoughts and reflections on how this work connects with broader efforts to develop more effective, robust, and resilient workforce development ecosystems that fully meet the needs of both workers and employers everywhere. And I think you all touched on this a little bit, providing equitable opportunity and promoting shared prosperity and thriving. So perhaps we can pick up where we left off. Juan, you were starting to talk about this a little bit, the partnerships with employers and some of the other work that you're doing. So if you could expand upon that a little bit more.
Sure. At the end of the day, community colleges are connecting institutions. And where do we need to connect? We need to connect to K through 12 schools in more robust and organized ways. One of the things we're doing in Chicago is something called the Chicago Roadmap, a first ever strategic plan between the Chicago Public Schools and City Colleges of Chicago that looks at how we are really working more as one rather than two, working towards one set of residents, one set of families, advancing one economy. And so that's going well, but also working with our local nonprofits, that are in some cases community-based, in some cases citywide, and some cases, national, like Europe, and just finding the synergy points, understanding that our not-for-profit ecosystem drives a lot of added value and support to our students, a lot of opportunities to, bring in quality programming that complements what we're doing. And so we are certainly there doing that work. And by the way, when we talk to employers, I think we're going to need to increasingly talk to employers together, right? The days that we, go to employers to each, sort of separately try to meet their needs, I think they're going to diminish further and further. Yet Chicago Public Schools, for instance, with City Colleges, we're no longer imagining employers having to go to both of us to try to meet their needs. We're talking to them together, and potentially bringing in our university partners to do that. So I think that's an important mindset shift that we're going to need to make in order to get the productivity that Harry was talking about.
Yeah, that's a really great point about the partnership. And Irma, I dare say that you even suggested this in some of your earlier comments, that this is part of what the Promise Center is really designed to do, to facilitate this kind of partnering and really to show that together we are more than we are separately. Do you want to just talk a little bit more about what Juan is speaking to here? You're on mute, Irma. You're on mute.
Thank you. They're always
there. You go. There you go.
During during a panel or a Zoom meeting. Yeah, everything that Juan said is so important, but our partners really touched on many of the themes that really kind of are deeply driving our promise work. Is that what we need is to really strengthen ecosystems that can really meet the breadth and need and complexity of of the challenges of the moment. Sort of we need to create better and more reliable and robust and resilient talent pipelines everywhere in our country. And we at Promise are focusing on kind of the workforce space, but we recognize that a big part of that pipeline is the K-12 system, and that we need to better prepare all of us students and help them develop not just sort of the basic numeracy, literacy and digital literacy skills that they need in any job, but even the 21st century skills that will position them to best learn, and take advantage of further training at the post-secondary level. I'd like to highlight, so for us, we've defined a very clear vision for Promise, and it is to really focus on this central question of what will work at scale and within resource constraints efficiently to sort of really expand economic opportunity and restore pathways for strong mobility out of poverty at scale in our country. So some of the strategies you heard, these intelligent tutoring systems, are about providing intensive support and customized supports to students on a wide scale. I work with Europe on assessment systems, sort of a whole life cycle of assessment systems are about giving people credit for what they know and what they have mastered, and right sizing the skill building interventions, and also being able to sort of again open up opportunities into good jobs by not necessarily requiring degrees or credentials for everything. And even with the city colleges of Chicago, just helping to understand how to translate the secret sauce or the elements of these best-in-class sectoral programs to the unique context of the city colleges, and a public broad access institution. And how do we learn from this work and other efforts to sort of really accelerate the process of creating this kind of reliable ecosystem at scale everywhere in our country. Yeah. It's a huge task, obviously. And anyway, I really want to hear more from our other panelists.
Yeah, and let me go to Harry first, because I think, Harry, I'm not sure if you were going to chime in on this piece around scale or what it means to go to scale, but I just think you were on to something there, Irma, and I just was reading your body language. So let me know, Harry, if you wanted to chime in on that before. I think Plinio, we'd like to hear more about these intelligent tutoring systems. So go ahead, Harry. Did you have anything to add?
Well, what Irma and others call the ecosystem, to me, is the labor market and the U.S. economy. And one metaphor you can use for all this is a massive jigsaw puzzle. You have 160 million workers in the U.S. labor market, 3-4 million employers, everything from really tiny startups to Walmart sized, and all with very different skill needs and modes of operation. Government at different levels, education and training institutions, workforce boards, economic development boards, getting all of these pieces to not only be strong and clear, but to fit together and to be working not at cross purposes, but together on the shared goals is challenging. And it's great to have really the top folks in the field, and Juan, Garrett, and Plinio, to truly work with us. And they're not resting on their considerable laurels, right? They see ongoing challenges and are working to do them. But just to indicate the magnitude of the challenge, even beyond that, it's not a static jigsaw. It's one that's dynamic and often changing. We have major demographic changes in the United States, technical changes, automation. What's in high demand today might not be in high demand 5 years from now, 10 years from now. So how do you build a system, a labor market that's nimble and that can provide these great tasks, these great skills, as these organizations have done, but still enable them to evolve over time if those skills become obsolete and people need reskilling or upskilling. The fiscal environment is incredibly challenging, especially at the federal level. We know the politics are broken federally. I won't even go there, but it's a tough environment with a lot of challenges to make all this fit together and to create this productive economy where everybody can share in the prosperity. But again, all the innovations we've heard about from all three of our guests, the innovations in the program model and the delivery of the services, the institutional changes, the centers of excellence that Juan talked about and how responsive they are to the main economic drivers. That's what it's all about, creating innovations, implementing them successfully, testing, evaluating what works and what doesn't work and for whom, and making ongoing adjustments whenever we need to. And that's the work of these three great organizations and the work of our center here.
I could not agree with you more, Harry. And I think that, again, just acknowledging the enormity of the great programs that all three of you, Garrett, Plinio, and Juan, are working on. I mean, these are case studies, and this is something that we want to draw greater attention to. And I think that through the work of the Promise Center, part of what I hear Irma saying is that we really want to showcase that. We want to really convene more discussions like this very one right here, so that there is more attention to that, and I dare say urgency around that. And so I'm going to turn it over to you, Plinio, to talk a little bit more about the particular innovation that Harry was referencing around tutoring.
Yeah, I'm happy to, but let me just touch on a couple of other things because I think there's some points made that I'd just like to tap into. I think what's exciting about the work with the Promise Center and AIR specifically is the fact that we all agree that one size doesn't fit all, right? And so you've got three very different organizations on this panel, two of the very best workforce development organizations in the country, one of the most amazing innovators in a community college system in Juan. All collectively will serve 70,000 people this year. We could double, triple that number, and it's still not going to be enough. And so the fact that we are learning from the innovation that we are exchanging through the work that we're doing with the Promise Center, the fact that those learnings can be promulgated to this space, the fact that people all over this country in cities that I will never touch be able to benefit from the things that we're doing, that's an amazing thing. That is going to change the way equity is realized in this country. In communities throughout the nation. And so I'm really excited about that. I didn't want to lose sight of that. The artificial intelligence piece for me represents an opportunity to augment the work that we're doing in the in-class training, whether it's virtual or in person, and allow people after school to be able to continue the learning process, to continue to gain skills, to be able to get ready for that next certification in a very cost-effective way, but also a very self-paced way. And so the things that we'll learn there, I think, could be used in sectors across the country, right? It doesn't have to be technology only. Certainly the learnings there could be broadened across others. So we're really excited about this work. We think that this partnership is amazing. And I can't wait to be able to share all the things that we learn, all the things that we do well, and all the things that we won't do well, right? That's just part of the process.
It's part of
so
learning.
Looking forward to it. Exactly.
Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else wanted to chime in on this? Garrett, did you have anything to add?
I did, and thank you for inviting me forward one more time. We've spoken a lot about broad partnerships and systems change with very, very good reason. And Plinio, what you just said really hit home. At the end of the day, if we do this well, and we will, a lot of people will be affected in very positive ways. And so this brings me back to the center of all of this work that is very easy to talk around because we're talking about big measurement challenges, big technology challenges, and partnership challenges and bringing words together. But the center of the work is the student experience. Students deserve better from all of our programs. We're trying to give them the absolute best, and they deserve better. They deserve better from us, and they deserve better from the country. It is a scary, scary thing to come out of secondary school and wonder, where do I head next? All of the costs, the tenacity of schooling that's ahead of them to get ready for work. It's like, it is terrifying sometimes what the prospects are. And they need greater assurance on a couple of fronts because the opportunity cost is so high. Well, I have the financial support I need to pursue this education and training so that I can ultimately get after that career. Will I have positive experiences? Because all of our programs, all of our organizations, we work well largely because we're really intensive. It's a significant time investment that we're asking from our students and our participants to invest in their education and training to get ready for work. Everything that we're talking about, advanced tutoring, centers of excellence that connect better to the working world and marketable skills, assessment processes that celebrate and acknowledge skills that students are bringing in the first place and then developing over time. That's all promising and boasting that they'll have a better experience and a greater likelihood of landing in a job that makes it all worth it, that gives them the stability and comfort that we want them to have. And that really gets me excited that at the center of all of this, what we're actually talking about is like a better student experience over the next several years of their development until they land into a really great job.
Well said, Garrett. Thank you for that. And so with that, I really do want to thank you all for taking the time to really be a part of this inaugural event. I'm going to turn it over to Irma to share some closing thoughts, but I dare say that we really have an opportunity, as you all have indicated, to really change the conversation, right? To elevate and to bring more visibility to the conversation about what it means to be a part of the workforce and to really experience prosperity in the way that all Americans deserve. And so, Irma, I will turn the microphone over to you with some closing thoughts for today's roundtable.
Thank you so much, Makini. And I just can't stop smiling because just the potential of these partnerships is so great. And what I want to share is that what we hope to do is to expand these partnerships. Like, we know we cannot take on everything. So we want to ensure that we're learning from related and similar efforts wherever they're happening. Again, this is a monumental challenge for our country. And we're talking about issues that really have a sense of urgency to them. You know, it's about more than solving our talent gaps and workforce shortages for this moment, but really evolving our systems into what they need to give everybody a chance at economic resilience and mobility for the long term. So please connect with us. Help us know about what you're doing that relates to these efforts to ensure that we're not duplicating effort, but really joining forces and helping move the ball forward as much as possible. One thing I wanted to highlight for us, it's very important to not only focus on kind of what these organizations do and what it takes to do the work effectively, but also the enabling conditions in terms of policy, funding, regulations that are necessary to really sustain and support this kind of, this important work that is so fundamental to our country's health and well-being and for our collective thriving. Sort of employers, government, all of our institutions, everything needs to be part of this jigsaw puzzle that Harry described earlier. So we're looking beyond just programmatic solutions, but really to the systems and the enabling conditions that are really necessary to support progress in the long term. We're learning. We're committed to learning. We're committed to helping to establish a convening of related efforts and to facilitate the conversation on what is really needed to move forward. So please connect with us through the Promise Center, follow our efforts. We promise to continue to make our work known and share what we're learning, and also to sort of ensure that our efforts benefit as many people as possible. So with that, to all of my wonderful colleagues in this work, thank you so much for being with us today. To everyone at AIR who already contributes to this work, thank you for lending your talents and your passion and your expertise to these efforts. And to those who have not yet had an opportunity to contribute, I know we'll have a chance to do a lot more. And there will be further opportunities in the future. So thank you, everyone, and good afternoon.